right, official, we are recording. I hope it works correctly. Either way, recording or not, I will send a summary email with attachments and things, as hopefully by end of today, probably tomorrow, because I'm not going to lie, I don't know how long this meeting's going to go. Depends on you guys. Okay, so this is all regarding the admin update submission that was recently seen. So for anybody who is on, and it's totally fine and appreciated if you have anybody sitting next to you. So for instance, your principal who's interested in the same information and getting to ask those questions. I see one, hey. And also for your backups, and I know this seemed odd, but one of the reasons why we wanted the backup to be a part of this meeting as well is because you never know what's going to happen in the future, and if that backup has to take over for you even for just a couple days, having this knowledge will kind of help them to help the campus, okay? So some of this I'm going to kind of read into, and then others I'm going to expand on. Keep in mind 199 accounts and 180 accounts. Really, you guys worry about 199s. The deadline to add the funds to expenditures, or to purchase orders, is March 31st. Most of these deadlines we've seen before, so some of it's not going to be new, but March 31st is just slightly earlier than what we've experienced before, and I know that that's only like a month and 5 days away, so now we're starting to think, oh my gosh, I have to get this done. It's a great time to have those conversations with your sponsors and showing them either their year-to-date reports, their account inquiries, what purchase orders they have open, so that if you need to reduce one to add money to another, whatever you have to do, you can get that done before the March 31st deadline. So what does this actually impact? One-time use purchase orders, furniture and other items with long lead times. That basically means it takes forever for you to get them in for delivery. Pick tickets, that's our warehouse orders, e-commerce orders, blanket purchase orders for blogs, credit cards, and travel, and change orders to existing purchase orders. Again, this is for the 199 accounts. There are going to be some exceptions to the rule. So for instance, travel that happens over the summer and we're reimbursing somebody, it's not really the right thing to do to reimburse them before everything happens, right? So if there's summer travel, those are going to be exceptions. Extra duty, your payroll accounts, the 6116 accounts, that's going to be an exception because you have people that you need to pay. So kind of keep those items in mind. Post-season activities, state and national competitions. Sometimes we don't know that they're actually going to the state competitions until like it's happening. And that could be after the March 31st deadline. So you will still enter a requisition or request for check depending on the scenario. Only it's going to go through a process first before the original process. So Mary's going to look at it and say, is this an actual urgent request? So your description needs to kind of match what's going on. So just be kind of mindful of your descriptions when you're putting anything in after March 31st, that it fits the bill as something that should be urgent. Mileage reimbursements are still probably going to have to happen after March 31st, because I'm not going to put a mileage reimbursement in after March 31st for April, May. I don't know where I've been, right? We got to go to Sam's Club and do all these things. So that's going to be an exception. And of course, travel reimbursements, like we said, that reimbursement for Section B doesn't happen until the person gets back. So that's an exception to that rule. So it's important to have, again, those conversations. Sometimes you have to sit your principal and your sponsors down, not all together, it can be separate, and really hash out what's going to happen between now and the end of the school year, because everything happens between now and the end of the school year. You have graduations, you have all these pieces. So one of a good thing to do as well is, as pulling up your year-to-dates, pull up what's happened last year. So pull up your purchase orders for last year using either Purchase Order Central or Purchase Order Inquiry. You can pull up your reports for last year so you can see kind of what happened between March and the end of the year and start truly preparing for it. If there's a history of of y'all having to buy pizza in May, then let's start getting those purchase orders set up for that pizza in May so it's already done. The hardest part of this job is the scramble of either somebody requesting something last minute or us dropping the ball, which I'm not going to say has ever happened to me, but has definitely happened to me. We're going to get into the other accounts, but I do want to ask first if there's any questions regarding this section so that before we move on, everybody kind of understands the 199 thing. You can add it in chat or you can unmute yourself. Just be kind of mindful. We do have 45 people on this call. $199 accounts, expenditures need to be essentially not completed as an invoice paid, but all money has to be incorporated into a purchase order by March 31st or request for check. And that pretty much covers anything except for postseason activities, so that's state and national competitions, requisitions related to, well, that's not going to be mileage reimbursements and travel reimbursements. That's the gist. Requests for checks. When we think about requests for checks, we are doing a request for check for refunds to parents. For instance, Epic Water's banned. Students can't make it, they're sick, and they need a refund. That's going to be something you'll have to enter, but we may not know that until May. So those are some of those things that will most likely go through. But again, you might have to communicate. One thing we don't want to see are requests for checks used for invoices that really should have had a PO. So there are occasions where we might get an invoice and it's from a sponsor and they didn't ask for a purchase order. I just want us to be really mindful of talking to our sponsors and proactively being like, what do you think is going to happen? Because I'd rather have it and not need it than not have it and need it. We also use the request for checks for travel. So those of you who may have travel during the summer, just keep in mind that if there's an advance, it's a 30-day window. So you can request it 30 days in advance, but no later than 30 days because it will be rejected and will be like, please wait. The reimbursement side of it, again, that happens afterwards, is going to be allowed, but we do want to plan for these things, so make sure the money is in the account. So if there are no more questions about that, I'm going to move on to all of our other activity accounts, like activity and clubs and all those pieces. All right. So an activity account, an 865 account, your title, which is generally 211, your grant accounts, which generally is going to be 480 or 481 accounts for y'all. The deadlines really are pretty much the same as what we've seen in previous years. Your furniture and other items with long lead times, that means it takes forever for it to be delivered, is April 1st. And the reason for that is because if I order a bunch of chairs for wherever I'm working at the time, I was going to say McDonald's, but I don't work there anymore. So if I order a bunch of chairs and it takes like 10 weeks to get them in, July 1st comes by and I'm finally receiving these chairs, that means that the invoice is going to be paid out of the 26-27 school year budget because we receive the items at the next fiscal year. So it's important to make sure that we're mindful of the dates that things come in so we can have those invoices received and paid by accounts payable before, or at least turned into accounts payable before June 30th. Anything that trickles into the next school year is going to be the 26-27 school year, and we all know that that budget might be getting slightly lower as well. So we created this budget and we said I need to use this much for this much, so we want it to be out of the correct items. So the funds will not magically disappear after April 1st for the 199 accounts. They should not magically disappear after April 1st for the 199 accounts. It's I know a couple years ago, I think a couple of the departments, like CTE, had pulled their money back. I cannot speak to that because I'm not the departments. I can only speak to the actual deadlines that we have here, but no, the money is not necessarily going to disappear. If there are change orders what is the deadlines for the 461 accounts? So the furniture items with a long delivery is April 1st. One-time purchase orders, so you have a quote, you're going to use it once, be done with it. Your e-commerce orders and your blanket purchase orders for blogs, credit cards, and travel, that date is May 15th. Pig tickets, that's our warehouse tickets. They need to be able to do inventory over the summer, so that date is June 15th. And change orders to existing purchase orders need to be completed by June 30th. So you can still do change orders in anything except for 199. So I would be sending budgets to my sponsors and saying, hey, here's what you got. What do you want to do with it? So, and give them a deadline that's realistic. So although for 199 accounts, our deadline is March 31st, as the campus secretary, personally, I'd be saying, I need all your orders in by March 15th. That way it gives me time to complete what I need to complete. And I'd also be asking those sponsors already, hey, do you have any invoices that need to be turned in? I need you to be thinking about this so that I am not behind and I can get everything turned in before you leave for summer break. A few reminders, all orders for goods and services, again, must be complete by June 30th to be funded out of this year's budget. All receiving records must be entered into Munis before leaving for summer vacation. I'll answer that PTO question in just a moment. So when it comes to receiving, I do want to state that we're used to receiving things like Amazon, for instance, those items by quantity. I got 5 of these items, I'm receiving 5 of these items, I got them in, I see them, all good. If you don't see an item or it has not come in, do not receive it, because when they, accounts payable, tries to pay that invoice, they're not going to be able to, because it says we received this item, but it's not on the invoice. So these things do need to match. If it doesn't come in, it doesn't come in. If it doesn't come in on time, you can always either cancel that item through Amazon or just know it'll be paid out of next year's budget, however you decide to do that. On the flip side, whenever we get credit card receipts like Commerce Bank POs or your blanket POs, or really even your one-time, anytime we get an invoice, we can receive that as well in purchase order receiving. When you pull up purchase order receiving, as long as you have it as received by amount, you open something up for $1,000 and now you have 5 receipts, you would enter those receipts in the receiving line, and that will also show you what's left on that purchase order. So when you hand that credit card to somebody and say, no waters, no sodas, no gift cards, then you'll know that also that this PO has this much money left on it, and you can give a realistic view of what's on that purchase order to that person requesting the credit card. When will the credit cards be taken away? I believe the decision made there was essentially when we go on our break, so elementary schools, I think, go a week before secondary schools, and then I know high schools, y'all don't get it. So Mary, what was the final decision on the credit cards? Were we keeping it open the whole time, or were we closing it for 2 weeks? Thanks. Sponsors like PTO. So PTO has 2 different accounts. PTO has a 199 account, and that's kind of like, I call it the startup funds because I don't have a better name for it. But they do have a 199 account that is subject to the March 31st deadline. They also have an activity account that is subject to the rest of these dates. So they may not have to be allocated by the March 31st deadline, but we still have to be wary of the other dates. So the May 15th for all the one-time purchase orders and e-commerce and all that. Does that answer your question? That's going to be the same essentially for all your sponsors. So for secondary schools that have, band and orchestra and all that, you have your supply accounts and then you have your activity accounts. So the supply accounts are subject to the March 31st, but that activity account situation, you have a little bit more time.